What's up, gang? Stu Wetstein with Recruiter Confidential, and welcome back for step 5 of the 7 strategies for getting the offer in 2013. And now we're really getting into the meat of the 7 strategies, and this is number 5, interview skills. Now this one, we could go on for a long, long time about interview skills because there are so many different types of interviews, but I'm going to give you just a couple of quick tips on interviews. 1, no matter what type of interview, right? These days you might have a phone interview, you might have a Skype interview where you got to do video conferencing, you might have a panel interview, you might go in and meet 10 different people over the course, of a couple of hours, like speed dating. Whatever it is, you have to be polished. You have to practice. We talked in the last section about using technology to sort of prepare and to practice the answers to some of the common questions. When we get into interview skills, it's not just about handling, why are you interested in working here? And I've talked about this before, like my first interview, Red Lobster, right? I'm like 15 years old. I got asked, why did I want to work there? And not knowing any better, not knowing the ability to spin or to come up with a better story, I ended up saying, because I need a job. And there's not anything wrong with that, but there's a lot of different ways to go about that. And there's certainly a way to answer that question where I could have flattered the company. I could have said, here's what my skills are, all wrapped into one answer. That's what I mean about interview skills. So I want you to practice. And, it's easy to just say, hey, practice, and then act like that's the tip. But how are you going to practice? So we already talked about using technology and doing this. You're practicing to your iPhone. Nobody knows. You delete it, and you pick up tips that way. Okay, now we get to the next level, and that's where you build a support group. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it a mastermind where you get together and you talk about the jobs you're interviewing for, and you can support each other. But more importantly, it's so that you can practice some of these scenarios. Because, again, what I've seen in so many candidates, I've probably been to like 10,000 job interviews in my life with all the candidates I've worked with. What I see is people not coming in and having a good, tight ability to tell their story. Here's what's special about me. Here's why I'm so interested in this company. Here's what my peers would say about me. Again, not a script, but something that doesn't sound like you made it up the day of the interview, and something where you get to answer with some depth. You get to say, well, not only could I tell you why I'm interested in this company, let me talk about my experience. Let me talk about the first time I got to know your company. There's so many different ways that you can use a question to your advantage, but you can't sort of do all of that. You can call some audibles the day of the interview, but most of this, I want you to prepare, and I want you to get a group together. Okay, so the last step in this, now you've sort of practiced on your phone, now you've got a support group. Your support group probably were peers or friends or people who were going to give you supportive, constructive criticism, but now you got to get to the next level. If you're really going to get ready to go in front of a company, to deal with human resources professionals, to deal with hiring managers, to deal with the amount of competition, and you really want to stand out, well, you've probably got a bunch of experts at your house, if your house is like my house, and that's where you test, how strong your answers are, how comfortable you are, someone asking, why maybe you went through a layoff, or why you were at a company and you decided that it wasn't the right move and you ended up moving to a completely different industry. Hopefully, the people who are closest to you are going to shoot you straight. If you work with them, if you work with understanding your answers, knowing where you're coming from and not making stuff up, but just telling your story and doing it in a way that's compelling, that's going to separate you from the reality of so many of the other candidates out there. So that's why I'm insisting, I'm imploring, I'm beseeching you to really prepare and practice, and you can't do it the day of. And a lot of times, the way interviews used to work, right, even 10 years ago, you could do okay in one round of the interview, but they'd bring you in for the face-to-face interview, and then you could get a little bit better as, kind of like you're going through the playoffs. But that's not how it works now. You don't want to get passed over in the very first part of the process. So you've got to be able to tell that story when you get that phone interview, when you get the Skype interview, when you get whatever opportunity, 10 minutes, 15 minutes with the hiring manager, to really not only be able to tell your story, but obviously to ask some really good, empowering questions about what it's going to be like, a day in the life when you're in that job. Okay, that's how you're going to separate yourself in 2013, okay? So practice, 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 get people who can shoot you straight, and I promise it can be painful to go through all this, but there is purification through this process, I promise. Okay? And until then, don't tell anybody I told you all this stuff, okay?